So I'm so pleased to be joined by one of my favorite people on planet Earth. Something dropped, somebody's candies or something. Karla Jackson-Brewer. She's a longtime Dharma practitioner and teacher. We're both authorized teachers for Tara Mandala under Lama Tsultrim Alioni. We've studied for many years with her together, and Karla, you've studied longer than I have, and she is an amazing Chod practitioner and umze, which is a Tibetan word for chant leader, so she has a very powerful voice, and I love practicing Chod with you, Karla, and teaching with you too. We've taught a lot together, mostly at Tara Mandala at the retreat center in Colorado that it's our summer home. It is. We go to summer home. It's not a bad summer home. Some of you know that. A lot of you are here who have been there. And so Karla is here for a few days, and we're kicking tonight off as our first event during this week. I invited her to come to share with me the Lojong wisdom, and then also she's going to co-teach with me on Saturday. Some of you may already know that we're teaching a day long on this Saturday, and everybody's invited from 10 to 4, and it's a topic that's really important and close to my heart and Karla's heart. We've worked a lot on this topic in the past, and we're developing our work together on it, but we've called the day long Transforming the Demons of Privilege and Oppression. And so we're talking about race and Buddhism and how they intersect, and especially the tool that her and I have learned and offered over the years called Feeding Your Demons. It's a practice that is based on the Chod practice of where we feed rather than fight the so-called demons or aspects within our own life that block our experience of freedom. And so you can imagine around the issue of racism and privilege and bias and so on, there's plenty of material to work with there, ranging from anger, guilt, shame, sadness, disillusionment, you name it. I mean, these are all very universal, common human emotions that arise in many different aspects, but in particular we've chosen to further the work within this very important field that's ever present. And would you like to say anything about that, or not yet? Yeah, to keep going. Yeah. And so we welcome, it's both for allies and for people of color, and we hope that you can come and join us. And we've just decided that we will live stream it. So if you can't be here in person, you can also live stream. And that's a good announcement for anybody who's online right now, listening from afar. You will be able to live stream in on Saturday. So Karla is from New York City, and she is a teacher at Rutgers University focusing on women's studies and Africana studies, and also a therapist and an authorized Dharma teacher under Lama Tsultrim Alioni, like I am. And we're very blessed to have her here. 2 more events that she's going to participate in with me, too, I want to make sure to announce. Saturday night, after our very deep work with the demons of oppression and privilege, we're going to go lighten up with some kirtan. We're going to offer a Chod practice, which is a healing ceremony from the Tibetan Buddhist tradition that her and I are both very steeped in. And then after the Chod, we will make some joyful noise together and do some chanting kirtan, both from the Hindu and the Buddhist tradition. So we've got some Buddhist mantra, some Hindu mantras. I am joined by my dear friends who are really great musicians. We call ourselves the Hare Krishnas. So we've been doing this for many years. It's just a joke. We like to have fun, and we like to invite people to come and have fun with us. Yeah. Is it super fun? Thanks, Mace. It's super fun. So that's going to be in Oakland on Saturday night at 7 p.m., and it's on my website, or all you have to do is search my name and you'll find my website if you need more details, Chandra Easton. And you'll find a couple websites that I'm kind of what's the word I'm looking for?
Affiliated.
Affiliated with, yeah, that's the more appropriate word. Okay, so then on Sunday, I'm hosting at my house a potluck and a discussion with Karla on how to cultivate diversity and inclusion in our sanghas. So that doesn't just go for the Tara Mandala Sangha, it also goes for Against the Stream and any other Dharma Sangha, any other Sangha leaders who are interested in finding ways and really addressing this issue are welcome to come. That's at noon in Berkeley at my place. So again, search my name online and you'll find how to get there and get more information. Am I forgetting anything? I think that's it.
No, you did.
And then you fly home on Sunday night, so don't miss your chance. Right. So now we are in this class. Some of you are new, so I'll just let you know that we've been exploring the teachings called Lojong, or mind training, which are teachings on how to cultivate more compassion and wisdom in our life and in our practice. And they are taught in like koan-esque or slogan-like one-liners usually, that are meant to be contemplated, meditated upon, discussed, and studied. And so we've been kind of week by week addressing one, and then the next, and then the next. And so now this is our 27th week doing this. We're on slogan number 27. So some of you have the handout. Turn to page 95. Page 95, number 27. Work with the greatest defilements first. See, we're in the category called Point 6, Disciplines of Mind Training. So we've kind of gone through the view, the foundation of the practice. Within the Lojong teachings, you also find that the instructions on Tonglen, which is the meditation practice that we just did. And so now, Point 6 really focuses on how do you bring this into your life? And there are kind of one-liners on how to bring it into your life and how to be more effective in your life. And so now we're talking about the 27th. Work with the greatest defilements first. Just want to say a couple things leading into it, and then I'm going to ask Karla to offer her thoughts on it as well, and then we also want to open it up for discussion. So the Lojong practice, really all Dharma practice, and any practice that's geared or focused on waking up and becoming a more whole person, needs to address or offer ways to bring adversity and obstacles that we may encounter in our life onto the path of our waking up. In this context, some of you may remember that I've spoken of this as two parts. Bringing obstacles onto the path means to bring the external circumstances or obstacles that you may encounter in your life, whether it's losing a job or losing a friend or getting a divorce or coming down with an illness. You know, these kind of external, illness is more internal, but circumstantial obstacles. How to use those or integrate those as fuel or opportunities to wake up more fully in your life, rather than thinking of them as something bad that shouldn't be happening, right? And then bringing or integrating adversity onto the path, which is another phrase maybe sometimes some of you have heard. So I just spoke about obstacles, which are the external aspects. Bringing adversity onto the path is more of the internal reaction to the external obstacles or circumstances of our life. Feelings of frustration, of anger, of sadness, disappointment, disillusionment, and so on. How do we bring those adversities that swirl around within our kind of physical matrix onto the path as well? When we can start to work with our life in that two-pronged way of transforming and bringing external and internal obstacles and adversities onto the path, then the duality or the distance between the two begins to lessen, because we begin to take all things in our life as fuel for awakening. So the distance between me here or a path, and then obstacle out there begins to diminish, and our experience becomes more one of life as path. Life as path. Everything, all appearances, all experiences, good or bad, what we want, what we don't want, all of it becomes path. We don't have to take and make it the path anymore. It just becomes more automatic and more immediate to feel that everything is my path. I don't have to go off to the Himalayas and do a meditation retreat in order to become enlightened. I can be enlightened right here in relationship with you and you and you and the adversity and the obstacles in my life. And then, so that's really what we've been calling like the spiritual warrior or the bodhisattva, a being who vows or is committed to waking up in this world, in relationship with all of this, and not run away from it and pretend that my enlightenment isn't tied in with everyone else's enlightenment, but rather recognizing that it's through relationship we get to know oneself, ourselves more intimately as well. So then life becomes path. Yeah? So, landing on number 27, work with the greatest defilements first. It's one more invitation to do what I just said. Integrate everything. And this is pointing to, don't start with the easy stuff, but actually go right to the throat of it, or right to the root of it. What is your biggest Achilles heel? What is your biggest challenge or obscuration? And then work with that. Apply the remedy. Work Tonglen with it. Go to therapy for it. Meditate with it. Write about it. Do art. Talk to a friend about it. Whatever you have to do to work with it, do that. Because if we let that go and we don't address the most challenging thing, the thing that really digs us even more and more deeper into our big pit of suffering, if we don't work with that right away, we're putting it off till later. So in this Buddhist context, there are 5 main so-called poisons or defilements. One is attachment. Then the other is the opposite of that, which is aversion, pushing away. And then in the middle is this kind of ignorant delusion, confusion, lack of clarity. Those are called the 3 main poisons. And then there are 2 more sub-poisons, which are jealousy, like a competitiveness, like they can't have it good because then that means I don't have it. You know, this kind of sense of competitive jealousy. And then the other one is pride, ego clinging, like I'm greater or I'm more important. That causes a lot of suffering. So those are the 5 main ones in this kind of classical outline of Dharma. But I can think of a lot more. I was thinking, like, what is my strongest one? There's maybe a few, maybe 1 or 2 in that list. But I would like to invite, us to be raw and real with each other. I'm just going to say what I really have been working with a lot is dissatisfaction. That should be on this list, because that causes a lot of kind of perpetual grasping and wanting and trying to fill the space, or never happy with your partner, never happy with your life, this sense of like perpetual dissatisfaction. So I'm just coming clean that if I am going to do what they say to do on number 27, work with the greatest defilement first, for me right now, it might be that. And then I find my own remedy through that, right? Well, how do I find more satisfaction, more contentment in my life? So there are prescribed remedies, especially to these 5 poisons, but then we all in our life need to also ask ourselves, well, what is my remedy to dissatisfaction or anger? How do I work with that? Maybe we find nuances that aren't on these classic lists of remedies. So I wanted to offer this cute little mic to you.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. When I look at this and you were talking about, so really working on these the one that really is the greatest, and that blocks. So when I think about the 5 poisons, or I think about what gets in my way. What gets in my way of being a compassionate person in the world? Well, definitely my anger, clearly, number one. And then I think about, well, how that manifests for me. Lately I've been talking a lot about prickly. I feel prickly, which really means that I'm like a cactus. Don't get too close, right? Or the annoyance, or the irritation, or the frustration, all of that. When I think about how that manifests and comes up in my life, it just blocks, right? And then those particular reactions, they can begin to get solidified or habitual, right? The habitual way in which they start coming up. New York people jaywalk like crazy. Folks just walk across the street whenever they feel like it. And I walk and I drive and I bike. But when I'm in the car, I'm not really I don't have pleasant thoughts about people who just stroll across. And sometimes I don't say very pleasant things. And then I'm left with, first of all, it becomes habitual, and then I'm left with this muck, right? So I'm blocked. There's a way that I'm not open. And so seeing how in the different manifestations, right? And then what's the antidote for that? Well, sometimes my antidote is to laugh at myself. Or I have this voice that says, who's the spiritual person saying that? It's like, And then there's a way in being able to laugh, I kind of can relax. It's not so serious. So those are my way. That's one way, or one level of an antidote for that, right? Not so serious, maybe better to bless them or have some compassion that they get to the other side and they're safe. Right? No skin off my back. That feels good. So thinking about, and the other thing about working with these first, if we don't work with the most intense or difficult ones first, then they just keep operating. It's almost like on your computer, when, these things are open, or in your phones and the apps are open, they're just chugging along. But I'm busy dealing with the things that are easy, I'm being compassionate with my friends. I'm such a good person, so wonderful. I'm so great, I'm so nice, I'm so generous, etc. But meanwhile, there's a kind of, either greed or a non-generous nature that's just spinning underneath. I think the other thing is, and I was talking about this a little earlier, to do this, I think to walk the path requires a certain amount of bravery, a certain amount of courage. That I will take the courage to look at my ignorance, like to really look at when I look away. I don't want to notice that. I don't want to see that. No, I'm going to gently turn my face and look. And I say gently, which is important, to look and to be in the moment of looking. Sometimes this comes up around suffering, right? I don't want to see it because it hurts too much. And yet, if I can gently look and go through the process, maybe the antidote is just to breathe and be present. Don't judge. It's the hard one for me. And just look. Because looking can't be more painful, really, than the person who's actually suffering. Right? On some levels. It's like, nah. So, thinking about how we And really, I think for me, it's about transformation. How do we transform? And sometimes the process of transforming is a process of release. Let it drop. Let it go. Let it fall. And experience what happens. So I really like this, and I like being invited to teach about this, because it is like, oh, how do I soften the habitual crystallized tendencies? There's something about bringing things onto the path, shortening the it's like shortening the distance between the you and I, between the out there and in here, and getting closer to the space of there is no out there. There is no in here. Right? It's like, okay. Oh, there just is, maybe. But that shortening and the releasing of a certain kind of reactivity. I do not have to react to every stupid comment that somebody makes. And that's a big one, because I think that, we've got some people in the world who are making stupid comments regularly. In every moment of the day. It's like something's coming up. And I could get myself into being sort of softening the I do not have to react. I don't have to respond to everybody who's rude to me. What a relief that is. I think about, wow, how freeing. How freeing. And so that also addresses the suffering that happens here, right? Different ways to cut through it. So thanks.
It's been a while. So I was thinking of opening it up to you all. Yes. I think they turned the mic up so we don't have to pass.
Self-hatred, self-loathing.
Yeah.
As a barrier.
Mm-hmm.
That's a big one. Mm-hmm. Yeah, good. What do you have a sense of what your remedy is in your life? Not yet?
Emptiness of it, non-duality perhaps, but making that into a practice and not feeling sort of Pollyanna about this idea that like, oh, well, no, I'm perfect as it is. I'm empty anyways. And I'm feeling this, but I'm not really feeling it. It's sort of like I can't sort of shovel enough beautiful smelling roses on top of this pile of shit that I sometimes think that I am in order to, really make it better. Better to sort of get at the root of it. So I'm looking for as much instruction as possible or help.
I'll say something and then I want to hear. Yeah. I hear you. That's definitely one I've worked with a lot, and it's very important not to spiritually bypass over by trying to pile on philosophical, logical answers and also nice-smelling things. What I've learned over the years that's helped me a lot, which I'd like to offer, is that when you notice that you're stuck in this mind movie or thought pattern of I'm a piece of shit, or I'm not good enough, self-critic, I had that really strong. It was very much like lived right here. I had a lot of work with feeding your demons around it, actually, in the training of in the early days, and it was very helpful. But what I discovered also is that having been raised in Buddhism, actually, and by parents who were very much into Dharma, but didn't really know how to feel or explore the emotional life very well, that I had learned at a young age how to spiritual bypass very well, and I didn't even know it. Meaning leap over the yucky uncomfortable stuff for the high states, for getting high in samadhi or on drugs or whatever. And then it was through working with various teachers and techniques that helped me feel my feelings. And so one thing that helped me is that when I noticed I was in that mind movie of self-hatred or self-critic doubt, to first notice that that's, that familiar thought pattern, that's there again, that's the important first step. And then dropping into the feeling of what's fueling that or what's behind that thought pattern. That's what I hadn't learned yet, is to feel it. Mm-hmm. I had learned to automatically go into, well, it's empty, that's not really real. Mm-hmm. And so this important middle step, which is key, is to feel what the feeling is underneath. Is there sadness? Is there anger? Maybe fear of abandonment or being alone? The feeling tone of self-hatred is different than the thought of I'm a piece of shit. There's something underneath that might be a little more nuanced or tender. And so to have and drop in and allow that feeling to have space. My favorite recent saying is that I heard from one of my teachers is, everything goes better with space. Everything goes better with space. So the thought, yes, but also that feeling that's behind or underlying the thought, allow space for it to be there and to feel it and drop into your belly and feel it. Oftentimes the mental energies in the head center drop down into the belly center and really feel it. And then maybe learn what needs to be learned from that. If the feeling had a voice, what would it say, type of thing, or just allow it to be there. And then you can, within that space, you can then do a little vipassana and see into the empty nature of thought, the empty nature of feeling. Yes, it is empty, sure, but you felt it and you've really allowed yourself to be with it, and that's something that's helped me a lot. Yeah.
When I think about it, something that has worked for me is to try to identify when so for me it would manifest as negative self-talk, but to see, well, where is that coming from? Whose voice is that? And sometimes that has been really helpful, because it's like, okay, oh, that's that person's voice. That's my kindergarten teacher who made me feel wrong because I wanted to be at the front of the line. And I ran to get there. And she snatched me back and plopped me very hard in a chair. So, things would come up about, I want to be first. No, you can't be first. It was, for a long time, it was really crazy. That kind of pushed me, I'm wrong for putting myself. No, I'm not. And then identify, that's her voice. Because she thought that, or even because she might have said something, doesn't make it true. Wow. That is I found some power there. Because you say I'm selfish, or I've internalized that, doesn't really make it true. And I've identified other ways that I am. Right? So that can be helpful. And I think it is important for us to feel our feelings. I was a person for a long time who thought my feelings. Like, I think them. Yes, and I'd say, I feel sad, but I'm really thinking sad. And when I gave myself permission, without judgment, to just feel sad. At first it was really scary, but I also learned, like, all right, okay, I have this feeling. Where is it? Like really embody, like, oh, it's here. looking at, well, what are the triggers? What brings that feeling up? And then addressing those. And I think that there are some skillful means, you mentioned feeding your demons, like externalizing it, looking at it, feeding it. What's at the root? What do you need? And maybe the other side, sometimes what I would come back to is like, what do I want? I need to feel loved. I need to feel loved. And then creating a little self-loving talisman, that works really well for me. A self-loving, a thing or an image that, maybe it was an energy that's like, it's okay, Karla. Because that's all I need to hear. Or even a counter statement. I'm such a screw up. The counter statement is, that's not true. No, I'm so. It's like, that's not the case. You're capable and lovable. Like, oh, that actually feels better. I can go with that. But yeah, just, some of the ways that I've worked with some of these.
Next, yeah.
So, I find it really, thank you, this was very poignant. I find that number 27, jumping right into it though, is a little bit difficult, and so I went through what Trump said at the beginning. You first have a firm foundation to be able to meet some of these things.
Yeah.
So I lived in Japan. I was a monk for like 8 years in spiritual bypassing. My teacher said, now you got to come back out here in the world and live here.
Yeah.
And I find that this world is so much more difficult than the temple. And, I've gone through some shit recently, and it's like these emotions, like they're all coming up again, and like, I'm so good at like, not seeing them, and it's like, it's really hard for me. And so I look externally, and get readings off of other people, and then all of a sudden I'm needy, right? And so like, I'm learning how to be human again.
Yeah.
Wow. So like when you're talking about going to 27 and pulling out the heavy stuff, it's like, I can't sit. Just sit in a ball and shake, I'm gonna let the sin liberate itself, but it's like, like I avoid aggression.
Yeah. Yeah. I think you should heed the intuitive signs there and not force it. Yeah, it probably sounds like what you're doing. You're right. Definitely jumping into this is like, okay, work with the hardest thing first. This is not for the faint of heart. And it depends on where we are in our life. Maybe it's a hard one to tackle, and you might want to move to another slogan that speaks more to you at the time in your life. So that's fine.
So this might book Monday and Fridays for sure, and Wednesdays when I can. So it can be gentle again. Slowly get back into it.
Yeah, good. Yeah, the spiritual journey needs to be not just going up, but also going downward, right, into the world, rooting into it and uncovering the gold underneath the earth, and let that be fuel for then the upward. They have to be happening really, in a way, simultaneously. Oftentimes when we go to the monastery or we go on retreat, we go up and out, and we don't really learn how to go in and swim around and make peace with all the elements of the netherworld. And so it feels intuitively, and from what you've said, that's your task now, is to make friends with all of that. And to make friends in the world. Yeah, that people are okay, we're not all that bad. So Lojong is a really good area for you, I think, right now, whether you come on Wednesdays or just get a book and read it and study and think about it on your own time. I think it would be a good thing for you to lean into. I think it's good for everybody. Yes.
So, as you're listing off the different things, it's like, well, most of those apply, whether it's ego or dissatisfaction or anger, like the angry driver pissed off at the pedestrian, and then the angry pedestrian pissed off at the driver. A lot of that feels like it resonates, and where do you even start with all that? It just, because then the self-loathing kicks in, and it's like, oh, well, aren't you the most about that person? It just feels like they're all big things. How do you
Yeah.
work with that?
Yeah. Do you want to speak to that?
Just what came up for me is working with kindness. So we talk a lot about compassion, right? But also being kind to myself. Being kind in terms of when I see something that I either identify as negative or it's something that I don't like or doesn't really sit well with me, to develop an aspect of myself that kind of holds my hand and says, okay, Karla, just look. Don't be so hard. Don't, take it slowly. So being kind, and I find that even as I work with people and talk to people, folks can find a space to be kind to other folks, right? We can always, it's like somebody's having a hard day, if all we say is, oh, I'm really sorry you're having a hard day. We regularly do not direct that kindness to ourselves. I don't have to make myself wrong or beat myself up because I'm having a hard day. And I think there should be some other way that I should be existing. It's like, shoulda, woulda, coulda, that's over there. And can I just, maybe my kind self, whatever that looks like, can help me just be with, I'm having a hard day. And so there's something that keeps coming up around, but being kind, being compassionate. So when I said, gently turning my face to look. And I think when we start working with examining these emotions of living as humans, I'm going to experience envy. Now, the way that I'd like to be in the world, my good higher self, loving, kind, etc., can get really angry because I experience envy. That's not good. It means I'm bad. Like, It's part of human experience. And so even looking at, well, what's at the root of that envy? Well, maybe what's at the root of the envy is like, I'm feeling a little empty. Oh. So maybe some internal kindness will move some of that emptiness. Or maybe it allows me to call up someone, a trusted person, and just share. It's like, had a moment of envy. And hopefully the other person said, really? What was that like for you? As opposed to, how could you feel that? What kind of Buddhist teacher are you? Really? What was that like for you? You said something also about space, right? You talked about space. And if we can, so sometimes things are arising because there's a stimulus, right? Somebody does something, somebody says something, somebody acts in a way. If we can stretch or expand the space between that stimulus and our reaction, then there's an awful lot of space for us to choose how we might respond, how we might react. And so maybe it is really starting by, even though you may work on the biggest, the greatest, you work on it in little bits, right? Little pieces. What causes that? Are there some other reactions I could have? Or maybe all I have to just do is just let it be. Don't run towards it. Don't run away from it. Don't judge it. Just notice. There's a lot of power there. And just notice, I feel left out. Interesting. No, I feel it. Okay. And then see what other information arises.
So we're nearing the end of our time. I wanted to end our session, our time together, with a little mantra recitation like we did for solstice. So we'll just spend a few minutes getting a comfortable position. You can close your eyes if you like. And breathe down into your belly and settle in. And the mantra is a short one. It's a universal prayer mantra, often recited in Tibet. Om Mani Padme Hung. It means Om, the jewel in the heart of the lotus, referring to this jewel of bodhicitta awakening within our heart, of compassion awakening in our heart. Om Mani Padme Hum, 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 Om Mani Padme Hum. Thank you. Thanks to Karla for coming and sharing with me and all of us. Thank you. Yeah.